Welcome, I'm Paul, this is Dave. You're watching my channel's weekly compendium for the week ending July 22nd. Enjoy. Case file number 1723, written by Han Shot First, 5445. A Stranger's Smile from Mile to Mile. I want to start by saying I consider myself a very observant person. I'm horrible with names, but I will remember a face. This is what makes me confident enough to share this story. My wife and I went to Louisiana for her best friend's wedding. It was a long trip from where we lived in the upper Midwest, but it was worth it. Her friend's family made us feel so welcomed, like we were honestly a part of their family. We did the normal wedding stuff, rehearsals and other things, but we also just hung out in general. After the rehearsals, the wedding party, both the bride and groom's families went out to eat at this Mexican restaurant. This was a massive party though, so my social battery was dying really quickly. I told my wife I needed to go to the bathroom, which I genuinely did, but it was also an excuse to get a quick recharge. Now this is where it gets unsettling. I did my business and started washing my hands. That's when this man walked in. I'll never forget how he looked. He was a heavy-set Caucasian dude. He had a closed-cropped beard and wore an extremely loud and almost ridiculous cowboy outfit. He came in smiling at me and washing his hands. We exchanged greetings like usual, and then he complimented my shirt. It was a Spider-Man No Way Home shirt. I thanked him, and then he said he loves superheroes, and that he had the full collection of Christopher Reeve's Superman films at his house. I thought it was a normal thing to boast of, but then it hit me that out of all the superhero movies he could choose, he picked my favorite, Superman. I brushed it off as coincidence and said goodbye. We both walked out, him behind me. As I was walking back to my seat, I suddenly heard the same dude, clear as day, say my name out loud. I spun around since he was right behind me, and he was gone. I looked around and he was nowhere to be seen. It genuinely freaked me out because I never even mentioned my name to him. It was almost impossible for him to leave the restaurant that quickly. I told my wife and she chalked it up to coincidence. The rest of the wedding planning went well, but then the reception came around. I was having an absolute blast. Not drinking a thing, mind you. I was underage at the time. When I spotted this dude, bald everywhere, besides his eyebrows, staring at me. I stared at him back, and considering my last experience, I started making my way towards him. I made it to where he was, and he was gone. I looked everywhere around the party, accounted for every face, and nobody matched. I had chills for a while before trying to shake it off and enjoy the party. Fast forward 3 months later, and my wife and I moved down south to the Carolinas. We were looking for a place since we were staying with my parents, so we checked out a town that some friends were living in. This town is about 3 hours from my parents. While out to eat with them, I went to the bathroom again. As soon as I was done in the stall, I turned the corner of the stall to the sink and almost ran into someone. I looked up, and it was the same man from Louisiana. He wasn't wearing a cowboy outfit, nor did he speak. He just smiled at me, and it wasn't a genuine smile. He smiled only in his mouth. The rest of his face wasn't smiling. I stood shocked and looked at this other dude in there. That's when I realized the other stall was open. He didn't need to wait for my stall. The guy just walked into the stall, still smiling at me. I went back to my seat and told my wife, in which she got chills. Our seat was in front of the bathroom, so I watched intently to see if he would come out so I could show her. He never did. I rushed back into the bathroom to see if he was still in there, and the stall was empty. I'm still freaked out by this. It seems almost impossible for someone to follow us that much, literally across states. I don't know who is following me, or if they have good intentions or not. Case file number 1724, written by 5X Champ. Where did my keys go? Merely gone with the flow? The morning my car keys vanished into thin, cold air in January 2021. During COVID, I drove my car by myself to a big medical center complex with a huge parking lot on a very cold morning. Pull into a parking space, shut off the ignition, reach for a mask which I thought was on the car seat. Not there, so I got one out of my backpack. Get out of my car, close the door, reach up to my left hip to get my key remote to lock the doors. My keys are not on my belt. Search all my coat, vest, and jeans pockets. No keys. Okay, they are maybe still in the ignition. No. Look in the console. Look down each side of the seats. Look under both seats. Inside the seats. Glove compartment. Get out of the car. Think maybe they slide off my coat. Look under my car, under the car parked next to me, and around my car. No keys. By now, I am late for my appointment. Pulled spare ignition key out of my backpack to lock the car. Go inside for a doctor's appointment. Come back out after the doctor's appointment. No cars parked around me. Nothing. Look at a couple of nearby light poles, thinking maybe somebody saw them. Place them in an obvious place. Nope. Went back in to ask the guard at the front desk, but no guard on duty at the moment. Drive home using a spare ignition key, figuring I can search better in a warm car in my driveway, because the keys have to be in there somewhere, right? Nope. Going back to the medical center the next day, this time guard is at the front desk. No Honda keys have been turned in. I have had the car detailed several times in the last 3 years. Looked repeatedly here, there, and everywhere, but the keys have never turned up. One of the greatest mysteries of my life, because I had to have had the keys to drive to the medical center to begin with. Would you like my weekly and monthly compilations completely ad-free? If so, check out the link in the description to my Patreon, where for $3 a month, you can get them all completely ad-free. Case file number 1725, written by Grumbles to Internet. The night Kilroy came, a tale of fear and fame. I was about 9. I was camping in a camper with my elder cousin, 12, and younger cousin, 6, and my grandparents. We were in a very isolated camping spot in Appalachia. It was off an old logging trail, literally in the middle of nowhere. This would have been around 1990. It had just gotten dark. We kids were huddled up on a little pull-out bed, watching a movie on a portable little TV hooked to a VCR. I'll never forget it. We were watching The Goonies. My grandpa had just gone to bed in the back of the camper, and my grandma was just waiting for the movie, which was almost over, to go to bed. All of a sudden, the power went out. I'm not sure why, but my grandma didn't seem worried. We had lanterns lit anyway, but no more movies, and we were bummed. Then all of the sounds of nature stopped. No crickets. We went from complaining about the movie to being scared silent. My grandma came to our pull-out bed and hugged us. That's when the squeaky camper door flew open and slapped the outside of the camper. In walked a dirty, smelly man. He was crazy looking. Wild eyes, scraggly beard, ruined clothes all torn and filthy. He smelled like a wild animal and cigarettes. He looked impossibly old, thin as a scarecrow, almost literally, like impossibly thin. He must have been almost just a skeleton under all the layers of soiled clothes. He stared right at my grandma for a few minutes, totally silently, and she hugged us tighter. I kept praying my grandpa would awake behind him with a shotgun and save us. But he somehow just kept sleeping. All you could hear was a snore. The man said, "I made a wrong turn at Albuquerque. Tell Tommy Kilroy was here." And then kept staring at us. I literally peed myself right there and then, and I wasn't the only one. All of us kids did. My grandma said, "I promise I will." He kept staring at us, and I was sure we were going to die. He reached up and pushed his right eyeball into his head. It kinda squished around his finger and fluid came out. "I'm keeping an eye on you, Agnes." My grandma is named Agnes. He then walked out and the door squealed back closed. We were shivering and wet and starting to cry together when the movie came back on. Seemingly incredibly loud after the silence, and we all screamed until my grandpa woke up. I remember my grandma telling him Kilroy was here, and him getting so white and pale, asking if all the kids were still here, which caused my grandma to frantically come back to us and hug it all over again. I don't remember anything else until morning. I thought it was a dream, but I had different underwear on, and the bed had new sheets and blankets. Our peed-on stuff was all in a hamper, and I was so scared all over. I asked about the night, and nobody remembered, except my youngest cousin, who asked if we really peed the bed together. She thought it was hilarious. My grandparents would hush us up angrily or hurriedly if we brought it up. When my little cousin asked who Kilroy was, my grandfather looked scared, making us promise not to say that until we were home, but we never talked about it again. I strangely forgot all about it for years until one day, I was looking through a book at the library and saw a picture in it of World War II graffiti saying, "Kilroy was here." And it appeared again in my mind all at once. I have no idea what happened or why, and my grandparents are long gone. He knew my grandparents' names, whatever he was. Case file number 1726, written by Character 2 7232. The Wandering Bit, a tale of the little folks' wit. A couple years ago, I was trying to install some floating shelves in my living room. The wall is hollow and needs anchors. I was using a handheld screwdriver with a detachable magnetic flathead bit to try and gently work the anchor into the wall. The screwdriver was from one of those little simple IKEA toolkits that comes with a hammer, pliers, a bare screwdriver with a bunch of detachable magnetic screwdriver heads that sit in a row for storage. Well, the hole opened up more than I anticipated. The flathead bit got stuck in the anchor and both fell into the wall. This was very clear as I pulled back the screwdriver and found it with no head. I remember cussing about it and grabbing a flashlight to see if I could fish them out, but alas, they were gone. I also very clearly saw the row of screwdriver bits with one flathead missing. It made my OCD flare. I even remember wondering if or where I could buy a single replacement. The toolkit is like $10, so really not a huge loss, but annoyingly hard to replace single bits as a result. Fast forward 2 or 3 weeks. My friend is over helping with a project in the garage. We were installing hooks and shelves on the walls for tools. I was assessing before starting. I had the power drill, but also wanted to grab the toolkit from inside just to have extra stuff on hand. I haven't touched it since the floating wall installation. I pulled the IKEA toolkit from the drawer it lives in and popped it open, since I wanted to check out which bits I might need. Everything was in place. I looked at the row of screwdriver bits, and the freaking flathead bit is there. Like nothing had ever happened. I'm just slack-jawed. My friend who was helping me that day is Ojibwe, and told me it's the little people. Ojibwe culture recognizes little people, who are very similar to the ones from Irish and Scandinavian lore. He suggested I start leaving them gifts like hard candies, tiny shiny objects as a thank you, which I actually did. For me, it definitely felt very glitch in the Matrix. To this day, it blows my mind. What do you all think? Case file number 1727, written by General Chicken 99. Blink and she's there. Megan's supernatural flair. I got a story for you. Both my friends and I, let's call her Megan, were fully aware of these instances and both completely shocked when they occurred. We still talk about them to this day. In high school, during a pep rally, I don't know if y'all did those, but it was like a day where the grades battled it out for fun in the gym. Everyone's energy is high. Maybe energetically, this caused the phenomenon. Anyway, all of the students were going crazy, and the stairs and hallways and a lunch table area were packed. I was squished between kids downstairs, and I could see my friend Megan squished between kids upstairs. It was loud, so I motioned for her to make it down to me. Just then, a giant loogie comes hurtling towards me and hits me on the shoulder. In an impossible instant, no exaggeration, Megan was by my side. She was pissed. She saw who did it and came down to help me. But when we were together, we both had the realization of, holy crap, how did you get down here so fast? It would have been impossible to make it down here, even if the stairs and halls were empty and weren't packed with kids. We were freaked out. Second time this happened with the same girl, Megan. I was in the bathroom crying. Something bad had just happened to me. I texted her to come. She was far on the other side of the campus. Just then I hear footsteps very near down the hall, jogging towards the bathroom. It's her. Again, we were both freaking out and realizing how fast she came to me. It wasn't just exceptionally fast for a human, it was humanly impossibly fast, and to this day we refer to these instances as teleporting. Don't know if that's a correct term, but we were also in high school. About 13 years ago, before I knew all about glitches. I still wonder about those instances, what really happened. She was a very special girl. I wouldn't doubt for a second she has powers of some sort. We lost contact, but here and there, when I see her seldom post on social media, she's in another remote country, making me wonder yet again, how the hell did she get all the way over there? We talked about it many times in the past. She had nothing to report other than she literally just was standing there 1 minute and then she was here. It was instantaneous for her. We noticed at both instances, or when she was in an emotionally charged state of mind. She experienced a lot of physical abuse as a child. I wonder if she learned at a young age to travel away from her body. She was super smart, like she was an AP kid, super into physics and chemistry. Case file number 1728, written by Shuzi 987. Twice the pain, a sorrowful refrain. 7 years ago, while visiting my grandparents, they told me their next-door neighbor's son committed an ending in their house a few days prior. He was about 30 and had some tough mental health struggles. It was fairly traumatic as he had children in the house who witnessed the event. The children were sent to my grandparents' house for a few hours, while ambulances were called and the scene was cleared up. It was clearly horrendous for all involved. The somber conversation took up most of the afternoon, with my grandmother breaking down in tears. My grandmother sadly passed between then and now, and my grandfather is also getting on in life. My mother called me a few weeks ago to tell me my grandparents' neighbor's son had committed an ending the day before, and essentially retold me the entire story, down to the children going to my granddad's house while their home is cleared up. I told her I knew, and it happened years ago. She told me it was just yesterday. Both utterly confused, I ended the call and was genuinely worried about my mother. She's late 50s now, retelling me old stories. So I called my very elderly granddad, who broke down on the phone and was utterly shell-shocked, telling me he had to look after the poor kids. So I'm thinking maybe my granddad is having issues with his memory and has retold to my mother, and somehow she didn't remember it happening years ago? Wanting to check my own sanity at this point, I called my daughter and she confirmed with me that I had told her the guy had passed away years ago. It was common knowledge, and I'm sure we had discussed it many times. We came to the conclusion my grandfather was accidentally gaslighting my mom. Only he wasn't. The funeral was the following week. They both attended, and the death was in the local newspaper. My granddad has zero recollection of telling me with my grandma years ago. Case file number 1729, written by Kenna Kuhi. Anger's Echo, the Spirit's Shadow. It follows. That's how I call this experience. When I was 20, I visited someone's apartment and had the strangest urge to spurt out. There's an older man here, and he's very angry at you for something. He became very upset and started demanding, "Why are you saying that? How could you know that?" Honestly, he was becoming a bit scared. He was so upset. I apologized, as I had no idea why I would even say something so strange out of nowhere. I explained I got this weird urge and feeling when I looked in a specific corner of the room. When he calmed down, he explained that years ago, he was married and his dying father-in-law told him, "If you ever hurt my daughter, I will haunt you forever." He did end up hurting the daughter, and a bad divorce ensued. Apparently ever since that, he has had this feeling of being followed. He actually even moved countries and still didn't feel safe. And I believe he said he feels especially uneasy about that specific corner. 100% he never told me any of this, not even a hint. I didn't know he used to be married, didn't know anything about his religion or spirituality, etc. His friends never mentioned any of this. So what came over me, I have no idea. But there was an older man, and he was angry. Case file number 1730, written by Flypaper for Freaks. Cemetery Tune, a Mystery by Moon. 20-something years ago, when I was at university with my boyfriend at the time, I was on our way home from the movies, not quite ready to call it a night. He'd spill a drink on his shirt and didn't want to go out anywhere public, so our options were pretty limited. It's important to note that we were driving in his car, which was a beat-up old thing from circa 1980. Its audio system didn't work, so he had a tape deck sitting in the back seat that he played his music through. The tape deck seemed about as old as the car. You had to really push down the buttons hard to play, rewind, fast forward the music. We were listening to Live Secret, Samadhi, and just letting the tape play through. As we drove along, we got the idea that it might be fun to check out a cemetery we had just passed. We were that bored, okay? We stopped the car, reached into the back seat, and pushed stop on the tape deck, mid-song, which happened to be the 8th track, Turn My Head. I remembered this clearly because I don't particularly like that song. I was glad we didn't have to hear the whole thing. We locked the car and went into the cemetery. After exploring for about 10 minutes, we headed back to the car, mainly because security had spotted us. We unlocked it, got in, reached into the back, pushed on the play button, and began to drive off. The song, Ghost, started up from the beginning of the track, and we remarked on how it was kind of appropriate given where we had just been. The next track played, and the next, and then Turn My Head started playing. It took me a minute before I realized, wasn't that the song we had been in the middle of listening to when we stopped the tape? Ghost is the 5th song. If we had accidentally bumped the rewind button when we stopped the tape, wouldn't it have rewound all the way through to the start of the tape? Why would it just stop at the start of the 5th song, which happened to be called Ghost? The car was still locked, and we hadn't been gone long. Who could have gotten into the car to mess with it, and why? Now, I'm not suggesting it was anything supernatural, but to this day, he and I have not been able to work out how this could have happened. Any ideas? Seriously? Case file number 1731, written by String of Maid, the cat I adore who glitched through the door. I have to feed the old man cat behind a closed door to keep the young fat cats from stealing his food. This morning I do admit the door wasn't fully closed, but that's not a problem because the fats have learned not to push through, because they're not getting any, and the old man is no longer lucid, strong, or agile enough to open the door even when cracked. So the door was about 2 fingers open when he was done eating. Because he's been kneading the box, as soon as he's done eating, I did not hesitate to follow him to the door. My eyes did leave him, but not the door, since that was my destination. But he wasn't at the door when I got there. I looked around the room for him, confused, then figured he just took a sharp right into a hidey hole. I opened the door, which was still just 2 fingers open. Door swings in, and there he was on the other side, acting like he was confused, getting ready to make his feeble attempts to squeeze in. It's worth noting that the door does have a hitch that makes it loud and a little more difficult to swing open. So unless he's narrow enough and had a moment of lucidity, great enough to escape, I would have seen and heard the door swing. Or I fed a ghost cat, or my cat just glitched through the door. Case file number 1732, written by Cybergirl JPEG, Antique Maze and My Phone's Lost Days. A year or so ago I visited an antique store in my neighborhood that I frequented relatively often. I use the word antique loosely, as this particular store was run by a family that owned the building they were in and had a habit of purchasing people's estates sight unseen, so you can imagine how packed this place is. The store is near impossible to navigate, as they have piles and piles of disorganized merchandise that is similarly set to the antique shop episode of Nathan For You. This store was also known to service a large portion of my city's local theaters, for things like costumes and props. I can't stress enough that this place was filled to the brim with products that have been sitting for well over 20 years. I am with my husband looking through a bin of old maps on one side of the basement. I do a quick look around the general area I'm standing near, as this basement has incredibly low ceilings that my husband is too tall to maneuver comfortably, and a maze of shelves of miscellaneous metalware, accented by a back wall lined with Easter bunny costumes that were truly terrifying to me, ultimately discouraging me from looking any further into this basement. We leave the basement and I'm looking around at random things on the upper level. I go to pull my phone out to take a picture of something, but my phone isn't in my pocket. I begin to retrace my steps as I realize this is probably the worst place to lose my phone. I return to the basement with the creepy costumes and retrace my steps there. The area I was in was maybe 20 square feet, but this basement expands throughout what is essentially a quarter of a city block under this building. I ask my husband to call me, but my phone is on vibrate. Whatever little sound is being silenced by the insane amount of costumes and fabric down here. I expanded my search in the basement with my husband continuing to call me, stepping over old milk jugs, rotary telephones, thinking of any obsolete technology, and it was in this basement, and I was stepping over it. I eventually found my phone sitting on a high shelf towards the back of the room, an area I had initially visited and was difficult to get to on a shelf, where the items on top weren't exactly visible to me. I don't know how it got there. But it certainly wasn't myself or my husband that put it there, as we were together the entire time. I left with the willies and haven't been back there since. Case file number 1733, written by North Star 0566. 3 a.m. shout, the mystery voice that went all out. Was asleep with my girlfriend in our bed one night. This was roughly around 3 a.m. from what I recall. Our bedroom door was wide open as normal, facing our living room and kitchen. We were both awkward at the same moment as a voice called out, good. It was a voice that sort of crackled as the words came out. And what sticks out to me the most is that I could feel the sound vibration hit the bed as it happened. Not like a massive vibration or anything, just imagine someone yelling at you from 5 feet away, you feel it. It immediately awoke both of us, and my girlfriend grabbed me asking if I heard that. I sure as hell did. For some reason I got up and ran to investigate. Turned all the lights on in the house. Investigated the area down the hallway. Nothing was there. To this day we still talk about it, and it brings goosebumps to my arms. We slept the rest of that night with all the lights on. Just one of those things, I don't fixate on it. I don't have an explanation for what happened, but it definitely happened and both of us were there to experience it. I guess in the moment I thought it was cool. Something unexplained happened to me despite it being a rather scary moment. Case file number 1734, written by Call Andy, 90. Midnight Maid, a family Wade. When I was a kid, about 4 or 5, I would sometimes go downstairs for a while and then come back up to my room during the night. My parents noticed this, but weren't too worried, as they assumed I was just using the bathroom or getting a snack or something. One day I came back upstairs in floods of tears saying that, "The lady is gone, she said we can't talk anymore." Obviously my parents found this very odd, asked me about the lady, and I explained that I would go to talk to a lady that cleans the kitchen. My parents just assumed I'd been sleepwalking or something. Fast forward about 7 years to when my younger brother is about the same age. We're all in the car and my brother says he's been having some really strange dreams. Mom asks him what they're about and he says that there's a lady that cleans the house at night. But she's really friendly and the dreams feel really real. Everyone in the car just goes silent. No one says anything for a few seconds. But you could feel the, "What the flying hell?" vibe in the car. No one had ever told my brother about this. Ever since, I'd always felt very, very weird when going downstairs during the night. I really wish me or my brother could remember the mystery woman at all, but neither of us have any memory of it. Case file number 1735, written by Potato Threes. Popsicle Puzzle, Flavors in Trouble. A couple years ago, I had my tonsils removed. In preparation of the procedure, I had gone out and bought a bunch of easy-to-eat foods, including a variety pack of popsicles. The flavors advertised on the box were strawberry, pineapple, grape, and tangerine. Upon opening the pack prior to my surgery, I found the variety pack was actually just a large box containing 4 smaller boxes of different flavors. I noticed at that time that there was no grape box, but 2 tangerine boxes instead. I made a remark to my spouse that there was no grape, but that's okay because it's my least favorite flavor, and they gave me double my favorite flavor. Yay! Fast forward a couple days, and I've had the procedure. I go to eat a popsicle, and all of a sudden, there's a box of grapes and only 1 box of tangerine. I hold up the pack of grape popsicles to my spouse, and I'm like, what the heck? They were just as confused as I was. I have no idea what happened there. I even confirmed with my spouse that I had in fact mentioned a couple days ago there were 2 boxes of tangerine and no grape, so there's no way I dreamt or imagined it. Case file number 1736, written by C Implement 23. Feline Mirage, my cat's Matrix Barrage. Basically just like the Matrix movie. This was 10 years ago in a tiny house my husband and I were renting. We had a tiny hallway with 2 doors facing each other. The left doorway led to our bedroom, and to the right was our kitchen entrance, and directly ahead in the middle was the bathroom. By hallway, I mean a 5-foot by 4-foot floor space area that connected into the living room. I remember laying on the carpet in the living room, looking into the hallway to make sure we put the baby gate up between the living room and hallway so our toddler wouldn't crawl into the kitchen. I watched as our one and only cat walked from our bedroom into the kitchen. I kept lying there because I was yell talking, not angrily, through the door at my husband, who was in the bathroom directly in front of me. About 5 seconds later, our cat walked, again, from our bedroom to our kitchen, directly across my path, which would have been physically impossible because our cat should still have been in the kitchen. There was no other way out. It was a super old house and windows didn't open, so theoretically, if we left a bedroom window open and the kitchen window open, she could have run a giant fast circuit outside of the house back into our bedroom window. But all the windows except for one were painted shut. Never experienced anything like that again, so who knows? Maybe cats are just like that. They are. Case answer file 1723. A stranger's smile from mile to mile. Yeah, so I have the exact same social battery, where in situations, even if I like the people around me, I have to recharge, even for a brief moment, in this case in the bathroom. I don't think you were able to recharge in this case. I would not be able to either. That creepy kind of smile, which I attempted to mimic in the video, smiling, but not with your whole face. Yeah, you can tell right away something is wrong with that. Those fake smiles are just too creepy. Now the question is, was this a real human being that was just tracking you, stalking you? Could be. There are a lot of creepy men out there. But it could also be a spirit that is somehow tethered to you or an object that you always carry with you. And the spirit just happens to be creepy, maybe even malevolent, but again, I wouldn't stress too much about that. Spirits just generally aren't that capable of manifesting in the real world. With exceptions, so be on your guard, but I think you'll be okay. Case answer file 1724. Where did my keys go? Merely gone with the flow? This story had a very matter-of-factly way of writing, and I quite enjoyed that. Just to the point, no extraneous details. Cool. Kind of like how I would write a story, I think. Now, this is of course de-rendered object phenomena. You can say disappearing too, but I think de-rendered is more appropriate. Where the object is in code saved in the hard drive in the real world, simulation servers, but just isn't being rendered for some reason. An error in the reconstruction process. But that all said, I think it's a universal truth, even if we live in a simulation. Honda is so reliable, they'll turn up eventually. Now time for the quote of the day. Ernest Hemingway once wrote, "The world is a fine place and worth fighting for." I agree with the second part. Detective Somerset. Well, I think the first part is can be amended to, the world can be a fine place. It is of our making. With some random chaos tossed in by nature. Which, keeps it fresh and fun. Like the RNG mechanics in RimWorld, you actually want those to be elevated, because otherwise it's kind of formulaic and boring. So yay for randomness, as long as nothing too bad happens. You don't want tornadoes coming through your house, that just sucks. Although from an external perspective, it does make things a bit more interesting. Rather just a peaceful life with plenty of subway. Yeah, we'll go with that. Case answer file 1725. The night Kilroy came. A Tale of Fear and Fame. Back in the day, I watched 7 Days and 6 Nights, an old classic 90s movie, or might be 80s, but I think it's 90s, on a VCR in a little camper that my dad had set up behind a house that he was working to build with his brother. And for some reason, that's one of my favorite memories of all time. It's just the vibe. The vibe was everything. The vibe was there. It was camping. The home wasn't built yet. My dad was staying in a different camper, so it was all to me. And yeah, just cozy and fun environment. I like that. Maybe the fondness of that memory is why I so desperately want a homestead and just build an off-grid cabin. There is so much appeal in that. And then watch 7 Days and 6 Nights, the first night I'm there. But this encounter would definitely freak me the hell out, especially as a kid growing up. I think it might have been a spirit that was bound to your grandpa. Maybe something to do with World War II. Maybe your grandpa killed this man. And he was just a soldier, some young boy conscripted in the war and didn't know you until now. Though if that's the case, how did he know about Agnes? I mean, can ghosts do research? I suppose they could, or just spy on you before making a manifested appearance. Or maybe your grandma was even a medic in the war. I don't know. The eyeball scene as you described it, pushing it back in, the sound it would make, oh my god. That is so disturbing. And if spirits can manifest to that extent, where the physical matter can be interacted with themselves, oh boy. That is another level entirely. Though the other thing to speculate on is, it was some kind of supernatural creature that was able to read your mind, the mind of your grandma and grandpa, and replicate something that would tether from their past. But it was a real creature. And I guess in that case, it would just be a creature that wants to terrorize and not necessarily eat you. Which is the better kind of creature. Barely. Case answer file 1726. The Wandering Bit. A tale of the little folk's wit. Yeah, I understand the OCD inclination. I'm the same way. If something has a spot, then it needs to be in that spot. And if I lose it, it never feels complete. And I'll even want to go buy another one just to make sure things are back in proper order. It's that, I guess, when you realize you don't have total control of the world, the universe, well, you want to act on the things you do have control over, if that makes any sense. And so, I can't affect what's going to happen tomorrow, the weather, the events of the world, but I can control where things are placed in my home. That matters. I think that's what's going on in my brain. Most people who like to have things just so neat. It's trying to push back against the chaos of the world, just a little bit. But I guess sometimes the universe just shouts, no! And then the Ojibwe idea of a little folk, did they end up taking the candy that you placed out? If it was little folk or maybe spirits of some kind? Curious. Now time for the quote of the day. I know you have received orders from our commandant, which he has received from his superiors, to dispose of the population of this camp. Now would be the time to do it. Here they are. They're all here. This is your opportunity. Or you could leave and return to your families as men instead of murderers. Oskar Schindler. Okay, so obviously a quote from one of the best movies ever made. It's not an entertaining movie. It's a masterpiece in documenting and displaying human nature and sometimes some rare sparks in the world that fight against it, even when it's extremely risky for them. You gotta love it. You gotta hate it and love it, actually. Yeah. Case file number 1727. Blink and she's there. Megan's supernatural flair. The idea that a high mental energy area, an environment with condensed mental energy, could be related to these space-time portals. Maybe they sparked the creation of them. In some cases. But it's all accidental, subconscious. No one is directly thinking of it. You know, this even reminds me of Stranger Things with Elle. I won't spoil anything, this is pretty, right at the start. But the idea, of human beings having the ability to affect the world and even into different dimensions, well, that is certainly an idea that I like. And if true, it makes you wonder if we definitely focused our minds together into a focal point, we could maybe accomplish anything. But I think the most interesting aspect of the story is how, from her perspective, if she crossed these space-time portals, or if it's her ability herself, she wasn't aware of it. It's like you're walking along, and then you're just a mile ahead, and you just don't realize it because it's so seamless. There's no sound, there's no visual effect, there's no noise. If you cross these space-time portals, they really do converge different points in space, and it's seamless as walking from one step to the next. That it's just so seamless to me indicates that it is man-made, either through our minds or technology. It's just too perfect to be natural. Case answer file 1728. Twice the pain, a sorrowful refrain. So this is a story of sadness, somber notes repeated out of order. You and your daughter somehow bore witness to a tragedy 7 years before it actually happened. The cause and effect are reversed, or maybe a space-time portal is again in play, and you simply saw into the future, a possible future, but a probable one, in this case, because it already did happen. Maybe some details were different, but you wouldn't focus on those. You would focus on the fact that your mind is blown because this already happened and apparently didn't. How the hell would you react to this kind of event? I know I would. Even knowing possible theories on how this could happen, if something major happened to me, and then 7 years later it happened again, my mind would not process that. It's unbelievable, and yet it really does happen to so many people. Incredible. Case notes file 1729. Anger's Echo, the Spirit's Shadow. Prior spiritual attunement. If you direct your mind towards a goal, and you say, yes, if I die, this is what's going to happen, I think you're basically programming your own soul. the fragment that is left behind. Even though in quantum immortality most of your soul goes away, I think there's an imprint of your soul, or a small segment of it that is left behind here. And you can program that little bit that remains to do what you want. If you declare it with intent, with serious vigor, then yeah. So it's almost like a failsafe. If you want to protect someone, although in this case, you can't necessarily command your soul to do something that souls can't do. So you can't have them kill someone after the fact. I don't think that would work. But stick behind and haunt them? Yeah, follow through on the threat. Apparently you can definitely do that. Now time for the quote of the day. Pop quiz, hotshot. There's a bomb on a bus. Once the bus goes 50 miles an hour, the bomb is armed. If it drops below 50, it blows up. What do you do? Howard Payne. From the movie Speed. A true action classic. But I think there's an interesting philosophical debate within this framework, because to what extent can you risk other people's lives to save your own, or even save a whole bus of people? It kind of goes into the trolley problem, but this is more where you're directly involved with the actions and consequences. So it's even more complicated. If you haven't seen the movie, I still won't spoiler it, but you really should watch it. It's such a classic. Go watch it. I know if I was in that situation, I would definitely try to help everyone on board, even risk my own life to do it. It just seems like the right thing to do. But there could be moments, like if the bus is on a track where you can't veer it off, and it's going to crash into people, and maybe even blow up in a mall or something. Do you just sacrifice everyone on board? I don't know. That would be so complicated. I guess until I'm in that situation, which I hope I never am, I can't really know what I would do. Case notes for file 1730. Cemetery Tune, A Mystery by Moon. Does anyone else find cemeteries beautiful? There's an aspect to them that, yeah. Okay, it's a melancholic note where people died, but it's also evidence that they lived. That so many people came and went. But they had an impact on the material world, and that is something. It's a place to remember people, not mourn them or fear their spirits, if any linger behind. Though in this case, I think it was more of a tongue-in-cheek joke that the spirit or spirits in the area were playing. Like, yeah, they were perusing the tape and saying, yo, there's a title called Ghost, let's put it on that one, rewind it to that point. Just to mess with, it's like a literally ghost prank tube. If I was a ghost, and all consciously aware, that is what I would do. Prank people, not maliciously, again, always specify that, I wouldn't be cruel, but I would definitely mess with people. So be warned if you ever come into my house after I die. There's going to be shenanigans going on. Case notes for file 1731. The cat I adore, who glitched through the door. The fats. The fatties. I definitely laughed too hard too many times. I had to retake that line so many times to get that right. I don't know how people do it. Actors on comedy shows where the lines are so funny. I could never pull it off. I guess there's blooper reels like in Friends where, yeah, Monica, Chandler, they're always busting out laughing because it's just too funny. How do actors do it professionally? Impressive. And yeah, I think cats are able to phase through all over the place, but I don't think they're aware of that ability. And it can only happen sight unseen. Okay, so it's file 1732. Antique Maze and My Phone's Lost Days. Sounds like a pretty cool shop, one that I would love to peruse. You know, find those antique lamps. I love the vibe of those old style lamps. Just peaceful. Warm. But I'm honestly not sure of the cause on this one. A de-rendered object, okay. But it reappearing up top there? If it is an error correction code, it applied so quickly. Normally objects don't return that fast. Maybe another spirit prankster? Could be. Now time for the joke of the day. And it's a full story. My little guy is 3.5, and normally his granddad does childcare for us 3 days a week, while I work from home. My dad wasn't feeling well, so I told him to stay home. I'll put in sick and hang out with the little guy today. Daddy and buddy movie day on the couch as soon as we get our chores done. So my little guy helped me take out the garbage and recycling, take the cans to the curb, and water the lawn. It was still early-ish morning, but where I live it's already hot by 10 a.m., and the humidity is typically around 80%. So an outdoor sauna. We came back in sweating, and I said, You were a big help, thanks. Do you want anything to drink, buddy? He tells me no. I say, are you sure? It was hot and I'm thirsty. He started to say no, then immediately stops, looks me dead in the eye, and says, Hi, Thirsty. I'm kid's name. Nice to meet you. I am undone. He is the master of dad jokes. I think I actually startled him with how much I laughed. Dad jokes are wonderful. I hope to have many in my repertoire for when I become a dad. Case notes file 1733. 3 a.m. shout. The mystery voice that went all out. Okay, so yeah, definitely a ghost just messing with you, but honestly, it kind of sounds like a horny ghost, which, to me, a horny ghost is more terrifying than the craziest demonic ghost you could imagine. I don't want a ghost to be horny. Something about that just freaky. It's like, what could they do? No. Pass. Good. Oh god. Case notes file 1734. Midnight Maid, a family Wade. A spirit is possible, but I actually think this might be an area of the world where I think there's plenty, where the membrane between worlds is limited, and you might actually be able to consistently interact with people on the other side. Maybe even the time of day. Facing the sun makes it more stable, and not facing it makes it less stable. So you could only see them at night. And maybe the girl over there recognized that this wasn't right. I mean, it's not her kid. But still wanted to comfort any kid she saw. But as he got too old, they would stop doing that. I don't know, that's a comforting thought. A spirit is almost mundane, but it could be that. Spirit of a housewife that died there? Sure. If an echo of a spirit produces a cake, can you eat the cake, or is the cake a lie? Important questions there. I would certainly try to eat ghostly cake. Case notes for file 1735. Popsicle puzzle, flavors in trouble. So right off the bat, it's super hot here, humid. Nothing would hit better than a delicious popsicle or an ice cream cone. My favorite ones are the crunch variety, where there's chocolate crunch bar on top, and then it's vanilla but caramel in the center. Oh my god, it's so good. That's all I want right now. And you know, come to think of it, I think I've experienced this before. Not as much as this, but it was a duplication event of an ice cream cone. So I knew I had one vanilla and one caramel left. But when I went to check, there were 2 caramels. What's going on? But then when I went back to get the other caramel, it was vanilla again. So I mean, I was really bummed about that. Vanilla compared to caramel, just no comparison. Terrible. Don't do that again, universe. I'm warning you. Case notes file 1736. Feline Mirage, my cat's Matrix Barrage. Some people fear cats, think they're plotting to take over the world. Other people hate them. Other people like them. For me, I just find them kind of fascinating. Even beyond dogs, I think their ability to phase through solid matter just transcends them. I still don't think cats are consciously aware of their ability to do that. It's like with human beings that teleport or pass through a space-time portal. It's so seamless, you almost don't even notice, even though you're in a vastly different place. It's too seamless. The mind almost doesn't even track. So I think that's probably what's going on. The cat is like, how did I get here? But they have no clue about space-time portals or anything, and then go back to their normal routine. Now time for the joke of the day. I was at the dentist's office today, and I needed to reschedule my appointment. I told the receptionist I needed to reschedule, and she asked, how about tomorrow? Sounds good. What time? 2:30, she said. I stared at her, grinning. Are you serious? Yes. Are you telling me I have a dentist appointment at 2:30? This is the best day of my life. She was dying, and we had a great laugh. Perfect. Thumbs up. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony signing off.